Is your architecture practice stuck in a cycle of feast and famine, either having too much or not enough work at any one time? What if there was a simple way to get prospective clients to engage with you on a scheduled, regular basis, so you could iron out your workload peaks and troughs and have a steady, predictable pipeline of work without huge expense or hassle? The good news is you can do this by utilising launches as part of your marketing strategy. Today, I'm joined by world-leading online business expert Sigrun to explain exactly how you can do this in your business on this episode of Architecture Business Club, the weekly podcast for solo and small firm architecture practice owners just like you who want to build a profitable, future-proof architecture business that fits around their life. I'm John Clayton, your host. If you're a small practice leader or sole practitioner in architecture, struggling to find clarity or reach your goals, consider working with me. I offer personalised one-to-one support through coaching, consulting and mentoring. And this tailored approach helps you navigate your unique path to success. Whether it's growing your practice, working fewer hours, or building your team, I've got you covered. Just click the link in the show notes to book a call with me to discuss your options, or email John, that's Jon, at architecturebusinessclub.com for more information. Now let's discuss launches. Sigrun is an award-winning business coach, best-selling author, and multiple seven-figure entrepreneur. She's on a mission to accelerate gender equality through female entrepreneurship. She's been called the leading business mentor for online entrepreneurs in Europe, is a TEDx speaker, and host of the top-rated Sigrun Show podcast. Sigrun's online business journey started shortly after finishing her master's degree in architecture. She's since been featured in Forbes and numerous leading media publications in Europe, and has won 5 Stevie Awards as the Hero of the Year, Entrepreneur of the Year, Solo Entrepreneur of the Year, Manager of the Year, and Sales Achievement of the Year. If you'd like to grab a free copy of Sigrun's book, Kickstart Your Online Business by creating an online course and starting to make sales, then head over to sigrun.com/Architecture Business Club. Sigrun, welcome to Architecture Business Club.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here. Sigrun, I know we share a love of crime fiction. I was just wondering if you had any book recommendations for me.
Well, I am mainly reading the Icelandic authors today. And I would say you should look out for Ragnar, Ragnar. That's his first name. I don't remember people's last name because we don't use them in Iceland. But Ragnar is a full-time lawyer at a big real estate company. But in his free time or during his holiday, he will always write a book. So there's a new book every year. It's translated into multiple languages, French, English, Dutch, you name it. And he is a fan of Agatha Christie, and he translated one of Agatha Christie's book when he was only 17 years old. And I feel he's like the modern version. Agatha Christie today feels a little bit too slow and too stiff. And I was a super fan when I was learning English. I was 12 years old. I could not understand all the long words when I was reading it in the original English version. But I read Agatha Christie for many, many years. But today it feels a little bit like, I guess it's just the speed of everything today. Some of the Icelandic authors who have a little bit what you call a darker side, noir, they call it.
I love that. That's potentially just opened up a whole new world of crime fiction authors for me to explore. Thank you for that. I will definitely go and check that out. We're going to talk today about how architects could use launches to scale and grow their business. But before we dig into that, can you tell me a little bit about your experience of studying to become an architect?
Well, I was one of the few children, I think, that felt I had to decide early what I wanted to be. I guess you always ask children, what do you want to be? And, they say fireman or teacher or doctor or something. And I was going to be an author. I was 6 years old, and I hadn't fallen in love with crime fiction yet, but I loved to tell stories. And I would tell stories every day to whoever wanted to listen. And I felt this was going to be my path forward. But my parents were not so keen on me becoming an author. Back then, you couldn't live from it. And even today, we don't know so many authors that do it full time and can live from it properly, except those few that I mentioned before. Although he's a lawyer full time, so I don't know. Could he live from it? I guess so. But so they strongly encouraged me to find some other idea what I could become when I became a grown-up. And I said I would become a teacher and an author, because back then, teachers had 4 months in the summer off. This has changed today because now summer vacation is shorter, but summer holiday was quite long in the early days because the kids were helping out at the farms. It was like an old-fashioned way, like, hey, the kids come back to the farm and they have to help with everything. And now nobody is really into farming anymore. So the kids can actually stay longer at school, and they can finish earlier because we were a little bit behind the European curriculum. Teacher and author. I thought I had it figured out. Then my main teacher in school, was telling us why teachers wanted to go on strike. And he put his salary on the board. And even though I was not like, oh, I'm going to be rich or anything like that, I was not into really making money, but I knew that this number was low. And I was like, I don't know if teacher is such a good idea. So I was desperate to find something new that I wanted to become. And I loved drawing, and I loved looking at houses. My parents would often drive around to new neighborhoods on Sundays. My mom is totally into design, interior and exterior design. And so with ice cream in my hand, I would look at new buildings and new neighborhoods. And I was like, maybe I should become an architect. I was 11 years old when I decided that this is what I was going to do. I put the author and teacher idea aside for a moment. And so, it took me 9 years to finally start to study, but I was determined. I thought it was the perfect combination of art and science. And you couldn't study architecture in Iceland, so I had to go abroad. So during our summer holiday, when I was 11 years old, we were in Freiburg, Germany. And I said to myself, I'm going to come back here and study because this is a pretty city. I didn't know you couldn't study architecture in that particular city, but I did go to south of Germany and study their architecture. So that's how I decided to become an architect.
That's so cool. And the fact that you decided at such a young age that was what you were going to do. I think for a lot of children and teenagers, often they just have no idea what they're going to do. So that's really quite interesting that you decided at such a young age, 11, that was what you were going to do. And you did your master's degree in architecture in Germany.
Yeah.
And you then pivoted into this other world of online business. I'd love to hear what led to that pivot.
Well, I think it was already clear 2 years before graduation that I was not going to become architect. And it was the emergence of the internet. I was studying in the 90s, and we got an email address, and we learned about virtual reality modeling. I learned AutoCAD, and I already asked during my studies, I did all the courses that architects could do that had anything to do with computers or IT or virtual reality. And my final thesis, my master's, was a 3D multi-user campus where you could actually walk around. It's quite unbelievable because this is now 30 years ago. You could actually walk around with your avatar and you could create seminar rooms on the fly. You filled out a little form. Do you want a whiteboard? What do you want? For how many people is the seminar room? And I programmed this all myself. And the computers were so bad that often when I was showing my master's project, they would crash. So I had to have quite powerful computers. But yeah, so it was pretty clear to me that I was heading direction IT, internet. And so when I graduated, I did not apply at any architecture office for a job. I went straight for software companies. And it was not very practical to work as someone who was designing virtual reality. I was ahead of the game. We were not many people in the world doing this, and there were very few companies actually doing something around 3D. And even today, we're not there yet either. So I'm glad I didn't pick that field because it turned out to be a pretty hopeless field. We are not so keen on walking around as avatars all the time. I don't know. It just didn't take off, at least not back then. But for me, the practical path was to become a project manager in a software company. And that's what I did first. And I took an extra degree in Zurich, Switzerland. Information architecture was my focus. I kept on programming, displaying information. We got special access. I'm not sure this would be allowed today because of privacy, but we got access to the emails. We couldn't read the emails, but we could send a code over all the emails that were sent out from the whole university and detect if the language was positive or negative or neutral. And then we would display different colors and different boards. And we were all architects working on this. It was quite advanced. I was able to use a 3D printer in 1999 to print out a little design that I had done. We were a part of a project that went into a book on displaying information in a new way. One of my projects was to display what websites they're visiting in which country. So if someone visited a website in Iceland, it would show a little pin drop onto Iceland. This is long before Google Maps. It was a fantastic year, but I realized as a practical person that this was all a game. This is cool at the university, but what are you going to do in real life? How are you going to actually make money? And that was not the way. So I became a project manager in a software company. I moved back to Iceland after being 9 years abroad. And from there, it was in the dot-com boom around 2000, where companies were hiring too many IT people, and most IT people didn't even know how to program. And I eventually lost my job because they had hired too many people and didn't have enough projects. But one of the projects I did in my first job after studying was creating maps for Lufthansa, city maps for Lufthansa, because we also back then didn't have Google Maps or anything. So they had to be manually made for each city. Pretty cool project. But again, I'm a practical person. I know not everything, you cannot do all of these things if you, of course, have decided to live in Iceland. Of course, if you live in Silicon Valley, you can do all these fancy projects. Yeah, so I became a project manager, and I moved over to a website company that just did regular websites for companies. And one day, the company sold. And I get the crazy idea I could become the next CEO. And it's just like there was this idea that popped up in my head. I had no business background, no business experience. My parents had a business, but it was a dry cleaning. So it's not like I knew so much about business. But I just felt it was a relatively small company, only 15 people. I had talked to all the clients. I felt I knew the process. The only thing I didn't know anything about was the bookkeeping and the finances. But my dad said, you'll figure that out. Someone will teach you that. And to make the long story short, I got the job because the new owner, he loved the boldness of asking for the job without having all the qualifications. And that's sadly typically what men do more than women. So I'm quite proud that I did this. And that's why I share this story. Is like, I picked up the phone and called the guy and said, I want the job. And then I had to present a project plan and finance plan. And I did that and I got the job. And that led to me working for this man over a period of time. I was basically running online businesses, but they were all pretty traditional. This is before everyone went on social media. This is before everyone created online courses. So this is before that, but still, I got my practical business experience by being a CEO of small companies for 10 years. And what led me to start the business I have today is that I had met my husband in London and decided to move to Switzerland. And there I started to get sick. I had a job in a small company and I started to have neck pain and headaches and pinching ear pain. And first I didn't associate it with my job, but gradually that became pretty clear that I was sitting at my desk too long, not taking breaks. And in the evening, my hobby was photography, editing pictures. So that didn't help either. And I had a predisposition to, not the best posture. And when you're very ambitious, that doesn't help as well, So I had all the perfect ingredients to develop these conditions of muscle pain. And so I was sick for 7 months, unable to work. That gives you a wake-up call. Like, how can I design my life so that I'm not sick or that I can at least avoid getting sick again? And that's where also I was in Switzerland and I was like, I get 20 days of holiday. How am I going to go as often as I want to Iceland? My parents are aging. My siblings have children. And when am I going to see them? If I spend all the 4 weeks in Iceland, I cannot also go to other places. Like, this is not the life I envisioned. I envisioned more flexibility, freedom. So I started to design my life first before I decided what kind of business it was. So I didn't know that online business, doing online courses would be my path. It was just like, what do I not want? And what is the opposite? Like, I want freedom, flexibility. I want to take a break in the middle of the day. Can I go for a walk? Can I work from anywhere in the world? And that led me gradually to like, okay, should I be a business coach? Like, should I take my 10 years of being a CEO and teach people how to run a business? And I can do that through online programs where we don't have to meet in person. I don't need an office, and I can have a team that also doesn't need an office. Everybody works from home. And it started to become this concept of online business. And that's over 10 yeyears ago.
That's so cool. It's such an inspiring story. I love the thing you mentioned about that role at the company where there was the job of the CEO and you just like, okay, like maybe on paper, I don't have all the qualifications, but you had that confidence and self-belief to just go for it. And so there's definitely a lesson that a lot of us can learn there, that particularly sometimes you see these job descriptions and it's like these employers are looking for a unicorn. There's a list of things a mile long, but actually a lot of the best qualities of somebody for the role can be the things you can't teach anyway, So I think that's so cool. And the fact that you went through that life-changing experience and recognized that you could design a business around your life and that there was another option for you, which has led you down the road that you've been on ever since, and the amazing achievements that you've had along the way, which is really cool. Should be very proud of yourself, which leads us on to something specific we were going to talk about today, which is around the concept of launching. So this is something that you're an expert in online business, but in particular, one of your areas of expertise is this concept of launching things. And I think this concept it's probably alien to a lot of architects out there. Could you tell us simply, what do we mean when we're talking about launching? Could you just explain that in simple terms, just in case anyone's thinking like, how does this relate to me as a average architect. Remember, don't forget to download the Architecture Business Blueprint, the step-by-step formula to freedom for architects, architectural technologists and architectural designers. You can grab the blueprint without any charge at architecturebusinessclub.com/blueprint. And if you're enjoying this episode, then please leave a 5-star review or rating wherever you listen to podcasts. Now back to the show.
Yeah. Think of a movie. Let's think of Star Wars. When they bring out a new movie, they have a perfect launch strategy, or you could call it a marketing campaign for the movie. So 1 year before the premiere, there's a trailer released. And it leaves a few clues, but doesn't show too much. So it leaves you excited, questioning, you want to know more. Then they might drop another trailer, maybe 3 months after the first one. Then interviews with the actors start to appear in different magazines and on TV and on YouTube, of course. You know, now we have so many different channels, social media and everything. So we just say generally media, and we mean everything. You just start to see these things. And whether you're a lot online or not, it's going to be unavoidable. You are going to know that there's a new Star Wars movie coming, whether you're a fan or not. And you're going to be curious. Like, I'm not a super fan of Star Wars. I do tend to go to the movies because my husband is a fan, and he will always send me the trailer when it comes out. And so that is a launch. When you have let's say a big movie premiere in the US, it's all about how much money, or let's say how many tickets they sell the first weekend. The first weekend determines, is this going to be a big movie or is this going to be a flop? So they do everything in their power to make it so exciting for you to go that premiere weekend, because it goes on the news that this latest Star Wars movie box office weekend revenue was whatever, 100 million. And you're like, oh, I need to see this movie. So those who didn't go that first weekend, they go the next weekend and so forth. And then there's more news. Oh, it has crossed $1 billion. Oh, wow. I got to see it if I haven't seen it yet. This is a launch. And I think everyone can understand when you explain it with a movie. Now, you can take this for anything in life. I can see that you're into guitars. You can launch a new guitar. Even if you think like, oh, development in guitars is not so, like, there's not going to be life-changing things, even if I get a new guitar. But what if it is a guitar that is made with a special band? Maybe the band has signed the guitar. It's going to come in a specific color. There's going to be a limited edition. There's only going to be 100 of them. And you are a super fan of that band. And, well, you don't need another guitar, but you're going to get it anyway because that's what you do as a super fan. That's a launch too. Then we even have vacuum cleaners, you know? Maybe the excitement is a little bit less with vacuum cleaners because we're not going to run around like, oh, I need a new vacuum cleaner. But what if Dyson has a brand new vacuum cleaner that somehow detects that you need to clean today? You know, and yesterday it was still clean, but today you need to go and hoover over it because it has some magic sensors. They launch it. They go in the news. They run marketing campaigns. They run ads. They make sure that you see it. And if you've bought anything from Dyson before, obviously you're going to get a newsletter. That's again a launch. So all of these are very practical examples. I think everyone can relate to one of these to understand that a launch is a marketing campaign where you create excitement for the product or the service, ideally ahead of time, so that when it's available for purchase, that they can make a lot of sales in less time. And this is what people do in online business. We use launches to sell programs, online courses, anything we sell, really. because if you don't launch, if something is available all the time and you don't announce to people what's special about it, or there's no limited edition, or there's no sense of urgency, well, then you're going to think to yourself, I can buy it tomorrow, I can buy it next week, I can buy it next year, and you forget about it. You don't buy it. And the same thing, what Zara or these fast fashion labels do. Let's say you go into a Zara store and you see something you like. If you don't buy it right now, you go into the store after a week or two, it's going to be gone. They use the same principle in the fast fashion.
Got it. That makes sense. You've used some really great analogies there that I'm sure that everyone that's listening and will understand the concept now. I think that there might be a few skeptical service business owners that are listening in that are like, well, come on though. Like, why do I need to launch anything? Can't I just promote and sell the same thing all year round? I mean, I think you've kind of answered that though. There isn't any urgency, is there? If you are selling the same thing all year round, what is going to draw somebody to engage your services tomorrow or next week? Like, what's going to be the thing that's going to get them over the line? And I think for a lot of particularly smaller service business owners, they do have natural scarcity because often they only have a limited amount of size of their team or resources to devote to a given number of projects in any year. And often that's something that isn't communicated by those architecture practice owners. So they're really missing out. They're missing an opportunity here, aren't they?
Yeah. So let's say you have an interested buyer, but since you're not communicating that you're only going to work with 10 clients this year or this month, there is no sense of urgency for them. And then they knock on your door and you're fully booked. And then they're like, oh, and they need to go somewhere else. So by communicating that you have limited spots or limited projects, actually it's going to help you sell more. And you'd rather be sold out. And again, it's very smart to communicate that you're sold out. We're fully booked for the summer. We're taking on new projects as of 1st of October. You want to get on the wait list? That brings another, influx of clients because they're like, oh, I'm not going to miss out on that opportunity because if I don't register here, maybe I have to wait until next year. And I don't want to wait until next year. So it absolutely works in service-based industry a lot as well.
Brilliant. So I'm glad we've been able to quash that myth that there's a valid reason that service-based business owners that are maybe previously been trying to sell the same thing all year round, they really should consider utilizing launches as part of their strategy. Are there any other common myths or misconceptions around launches?
Well, I think when you want to launch something, you need to create some sort of a event. And I think that's what service-based business owners often do not do. They will just send out an email and say, I have 2 spots available. That's not really a launch. Yes, it creates sense of urgency, so definitely do that. But a launch thing means you have some sort of event. You invite people to a masterclass, to a webinar, and you teach them something. Let's say you're an expert in zero energy buildings and your clients are curious about it. They don't know what exactly that means. So how about it's just inviting them to a Zoom call and you explain what it is and how it looks like, the process, the benefits, and so forth. And then whoever's interested can sign up on a wait list or interest list. That is kind of a launching. And then again, you can say limited number of spots. We're taking on these clients. And, some people are not ready yet, but they're interested. So you can communicate with them differently and you can always reach out to them and say, are you ready now for your zero energy project?
I love that. Yeah, that's such a simple idea that that you could implement that without needing huge amounts of tech or anything like that. And by creating an event, it does create more of a sense of urgency to get people to come along. If it's like we're running this next week or the next month, it's a really, really good idea. What are the typical stages of a launch? Is there kind of like different stages to it? Like what would normally happen in like the sort of pre-launch? Is there things that happen post-launch as well from the before and after the date of the event?
Yeah, let's say the zero energy example again. So if you come out of the blue with a zero energy webinar, it may work, but the better way is to actually write about it first. You know, maybe if you're blogging or if you're doing a video or in your case, podcasting, like talk about expertise, your area of expertise, talk about it before you suddenly, it's like dating a little bit, you know, let's first start with a coffee before we go all the way to dinner. And so that's how you can really think of a launch is this, you're building a relationship. And first, if people don't know what you're known for or what you're good at, you need to tell them that you're expert in it, you know? So you talk about the subject and then you would have a launch event and you tell people about it multiple times, not just one invite. You need 1, 2, 3, 4 invites maybe. So you need to give people maybe a 2 weeks lead time where you are continuously inviting them to that event and reminding them of your expertise and why they need this information. And then there is a period of what we call open card. Now, open cards could be signing up for Interlist or book a free call with us. You know, we're taking free calls this week, next week not. So that's kind of the open card period. Something needs to happen and there's a deadline because that's how you create the sense of urgency. And you can repeat this multiple times a year. And it doesn't have to just to be for services, you know. As an architect, you can create online courses and that could be great supplemental income as well.
I love that. So there's a couple of great things there. So just to dig into the idea of the event. So we're using the example of a webinar. In this case, we've mentioned about a practice that perhaps specializes in low energy, zero carbon buildings, that sort of thing, that they could choose to run a series of events. They could do it multiple times across the year, depending on their how many clients that they're looking for. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that when they choose a date for this event, that they need to allow a lead-in period pre-launch in order to start talking about it and to build some excitement. And you mentioned that they could maybe write some blog articles, maybe they could be talking about it in the social media channels to help get interest, to help get people to raise their hand that are interested in this event. And then afterwards, you mentioned about there's a period where we can either invite them to a one-to-one call if the attendees have come along and want to learn more about working with our practice. And you mentioned that you could have this open cart period where we say, like next week or this day, we're doing these calls, but then after that, we're not, because we're going to be busy serving our clients. And this opportunity is not going to come around again for, say, 3 months, something like that. Yeah. I love that. That's such a great concept that like any of the practices that are listening could use that without having to invest. Like it's quite a simple tweak that could have a really great impact, but without them having to invest lots of time and money in a really complicated strategy or system. And actually the tech could be really relatively simple for that as well, which I really
Absolutely.
love.
Just need Zoom and send out a few emails.
The other thing you mentioned there is about the idea of having product, like a digital product. So there's also this opportunity for practice owners and architects to create maybe an online course or other sorts of digital products that I've seen have been things like ebooks or guides, downloads. It could be a masterclass, a video series. There's a number of different things that they could offer as a digital product. So that's another great way that they could make some additional income.
Yeah, I think the fact that I'm an architect, I do attract some architects into my online business. Many of them are switching over to some other topics because interests maybe change over time. But I do have, at the moment, an architect out of Poland that I just love her story, And the reason I picked zero energy buildings is because that's her topic. And she and her husband had been running their architecture office for many years and decided to focus on zero energy buildings and kind of leave the traditional ones aside. But with COVID and everything, it was kind of the business had stalled and even declined a little bit. And they were really thinking, how do we move forward? And so in the beginning of 2023, they decided we're going to try online business. And they joined one of my programs where I teach people how to create an online course and start to make sales. And they have been able in 1 year to create a 6-figure online business, and it increased their offline business as well as a side benefit. So now they have this business where they are making almost, they're still making more with the offline business, but the online business is becoming, it will surpass the offline business very soon. And it's been such a great way to, once you recorded a course, of course you have to run it and give some time to it, but you have put your knowledge into recordings, then you save a lot of time. And the cool thing about doing an online course, and you can also do it with ebook, but typically you earn much more with online courses than ebooks. That's why I recommend online courses, is they have attracted other architects that see them now as experts in this topic. And they are attracting the homeowners that also see them as experts because they are the ones talking about it much more than anyone else. So now they have these two audiences attracted by their campaign. So that's maybe the biggest challenge they have every time they launch something. They attract both audiences, and then they have to, segment and email different messages to different audiences. But it's been a beautiful way of their expertise was exclusive for homeowners, and therefore not enough homeowners knew about them. By actually saying, hey, abundance mindset thinking, we're going to teach other architects what we know, they are attracting the architects and homeowners, and I think that mindset is often not there. Like, oh, I have this expertise, I'm not going to tell anyone about it. The fact that they're sharing it, and they have free trainings, and of course they have paid courses. Now they've started a membership. Is that more people know about them overall, and they have really been able to put like a stake in the ground and say we are experts in this, and that attracts more and more clients.
That's awesome. Again, that's another thing that a lot of folks might not have considered. That actually that they've got skills and expertise that they can offer and monetize and sell, particularly through something like an online course that could be for their peers as well as for their typical customers. And you mentioned that it's got this multiplier effect that they're attracting more of both. So in terms of like what that's going to do to their bottom line, to their numbers in their business, then that's going to be an absolute game changer from where they were before.
Yeah. And now they say to me, actually, we only have time for 10 offline projects a year. But the fact that they are teaching their peers, they can even benefit from the extra work that's coming in, and they can start to recommend. So it becomes like a whole ecosystem.
That's so cool. I love that. This has been really interesting today. I'm glad that you were able to find the time to come on the show and share your expertise around launching in particular. What would be the main thing that you'd like everyone to take away from our conversation today?
I'd love everyone to learn about launching. I think it's been, for me, the biggest game changer, if you want to call it. It's such a popular word right now. We're going to get bored of the game changer word. But it was a true game changer when I learned launching about 11 years ago. And I think it's relevant in any type of field. Also, even on a personal level, I've benefited from launching. And it's how to sell with excitement. and how to package your offer in a way that lands with your ideal client, that makes it exciting for them to become your customer. So whatever you do, then learn about the concepts of launching. There are books out there. There are episodes on my podcast. There are many ways to learn about launching. And I think it should be in everyone's toolbox if they want to make more sales. Absolutely.
I completely agree. Was there anything else you wanted to add that we haven't covered?
Well, I just want to mention my book again. I created a course, 2018, anyone who wants to start online, and I call it Kickstart. Makes sense? And it's really a program that takes you through creating an online course from scratch, even if you've never created a course before, how to build your email list, how to create basically raving fans on your email list, and then how to make an offer. And I put it all in a book. So, and since I'm here with you, I want to give this book for free. So that's what you can do. You can go to sigrun.com/architecture business club, one word, and grab that free copy. Otherwise, you can also go and buy the book on Amazon, but you shouldn't do that. You should just grab the free copy.
That's awesome. I will make sure that link is in the show notes as well, so people can go and grab that. What a great opportunity to get that for free. Sigrun, there's another thing that I wanted to ask you. It's not about the main topic, but it's just a question I like to ask all of the guests on the show. I love to travel and to discover new places, and I know you do too. I was wondering if you could just tell me just one of your favorite places and what you love about it. And this can be somewhere near or far. Where comes to mind?
My favorite place is in Iceland. I am biased, Icelandic. I travel around Iceland every year and I look at different areas of the country, but there are places where I go to again and again and again. And one of them is the Glacier Lagoon in the south of Iceland. It is a lagoon where the glacier is coming into the lagoon and the ice breaks off. And so it's full of little icebergs. And you can go on a boat and go between the icebergs. There are also sometimes seals to be seen there. And close by is something what we call a diamond beach, not because there are diamonds, but there are little icebergs there. You can sometimes sit on them. They're big enough to sit on, or they're tiny so you can hold them. It's a magical place, and I think it's quite unique in Europe.
That sounds absolutely amazing. I had the pleasure of visiting Iceland many years ago. Bizarrely, it was just for a day. I don't know how this came about. My dad, we got this deal at the travel agents or something to just take a day trip to Iceland. We had a great time, but I felt like I only got to see like the tiniest little bit of it. You know, obviously you can't really get to see a place in just a day, but we got to visit Reykjavik and visit a few places nearby. And I always thought, one day I will go back and visit again and get to see the rest of the country, because I know it's a beautiful place. Sigrun, thanks again so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your expertise. Could you just remind everybody again, where is the best place to connect with you online?
My website is sigrun.com, and I'm Sigrun.com, one word, on all social media channels. Mostly on Facebook and Instagram. These are my favorite places, but I'm also on LinkedIn. Cool.
Brilliant. Well, thanks again. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to talk to another architect.
Next time, I'll be talking about customer relationship management systems, otherwise known as a CRM. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Architecture Business Club. If you liked this episode, think other people might enjoy it, or just want to show your support for the show, then please leave a glowing 5-star review or rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It would mean so much to me and makes it easier for new listeners to discover the show. And if you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss another episode. If you want to connect with me, you can do that on most social media platforms. Just search for @Mr. John Clayton. The best place to connect with me online, though, is on LinkedIn. You can find a link to my profile in the show notes. Remember, Running your architecture business doesn't have to be hard, and you don't need to do it alone. This is Architecture Business Club.